Hi everyone, welcome to episode 12 of my podcast, Book and Story World with author Priya Gurwal. In previous episodes, I have reminisced about my favourite books and also stories told in the form of TV shows, and I also looked back on my favourite TV shows since 19. Today, I have decided to look back at my favourite stories depicted in the form of films or movies. My earliest memories of films are Disney movies. I got Aladdin on VCR for Christmas when I was 4 years old. The story of the thief Aladdin, the Princess Jasmine, the genie and the villain Jafar is a classic, even over 30 years later. The song A Whole New World is still loved all these years later. At 5 years old, I went on a trip to India in 1995 for 3 months with my family. Myself and my sisters loved Aladdin so much we practically watched it every day for 3 months. Other loved classics are Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. Later, I also loved Lion King and the sequel Simba's Pride and the Little Mermaid. After the era of Disney classics, Hercules and Anastasia were also released and enjoyed. I still remember getting my little Meg toy in the Happy Meal at McDonald's in 1997. All Disney films, though for children, all deal with the very serious themes of good versus evil. Every Disney film animation contains a female heroine or male hero. Mulan is also a loved favourite. During the struggle of good trying to defeat and defend themselves from evil villains, usually trying to kill the good, often with magic, we are entertained usually with the story of princes and princesses, heroes and heroines, always remembered villains and scenes of magic and sidekicks, usually in animal form. Pocahontas was also a loved film containing the epic love story of Pocahontas and John Smith. In Aladdin, we view the power struggle of Jafar trying to take over Agrabah from the Sultan, Princess Jasmine's dad, via the quest of finding magical objects. Jafar, in disguise, sends Aladdin to find a magical lamp, which ends up containing a genie. Through unforeseen circumstances, Aladdin becomes the genie's new master and is granted 3 wishes, which he uses to try and win the heart of Princess Jasmine by pretending to be a prince. The rest of the animation is about Jafar's conquest to take over the land with evil. The Lion King deals with the very dark theme of the lion Scar trying to kill his brother Mufasa, who is king of the Pride Lands. The Lion King is an animation where the animals can talk. Jealous Scar also tries to kill his nephew, the prince, Prince Simba. I ended up being more enthralled by The Lion King post 18 years old in comparison to watching as a child and experiencing a few tears. The Lion King depicts the emotion of jealousy and the evil it can lead to. The sequel, Simba's Pride, is based on Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. It was a favourite of mine and my 2 sisters when we were children. We loved the charisma and presence of the lion Kovu. Now that I am older, I find the themes of jealousy and attempted murder a lot more complicated than seeming more simple watching as children. If Kovu was trying to kill Mufasa, doesn't that mean he had already chosen evil? Does that mean Kiara was evil to still want to be with Kovu upon his plan with Scar's lion and lioness fans being discovered? Or do we need to look closer into the issues of Scar and his fans with their issue with Mufasa? Evidently, thinking about it more deeply the older I get means Disney movies and the themes are also for adults of all ages to watch. Snow White deals with the issue of appearance envy and the lengths the stepmother witch would go to destroy the existence of Snow White, who the magic mirror says is more beautiful than the evil queen who asks. When watching the show Nip Tuck and thinking about the evil villains carving people's faces and stating beauty is a curse on this world, and thinking back to the show, now the evil male and female carvers terrifying people seem to be the same as the witch queen's stepmom in Snow White, reminding us that either gender can be jealous of the opposite gender's appearance too. In Sleeping Beauty, another evil witch-type figure called Maleficent curses the Princess Aurora, the baby of the king and queen, for not being invited to the party they are hosting. She seeks revenge by cursing the Princess Aurora to die on her 16th birthday. A good fairy weakens the spell to falling into a deep sleep if the princess pricks her finger on a spindle at 16. The spell can be broken by true love's first kiss. The story seems to be a take on vengeance turned evil over popularity. Maleficent probably wasn't invited to the party because she is unpleasant. Snow White deals with envy and the evil decision to kill over appearance, and Sleeping Beauty deals with the theme of evil killing over popularity. Disney films introduce children to the existence of good and evil. Hercules, being an abducted prince from Olympus, the son of a god and goddess, and his battle on Earth against Hades, is also a great story. Hades, like the other Disney villains, is unforgettable. Thank you to Disney for the great animated films of my childhood from the awesome 90s. Speaking of the 90s, a definite 10 out of 10 film, also by Disney, is Hocus Pocus. No matter how old I get, I still love Hocus Pocus. The atmosphere and mysticism of the film is always alluring and captivating. Hocus Pocus definitely represents the magic of 90s movies. In the film, a teenage boy lights a forbidden candle, accidentally resurrecting 3 witches who want to steal beauty from children. The acting is superb, and the film goes from humorous to nail-biting tense action-packed scenes. Hocus Pocus is definitely a classic for the ages, which I love to watch every Halloween. Another 90s favourite is The Burbs. The Burbs is a hilarious dark comedy about the residents of a suburban street in America who suspect their recently moved-in neighbours are murderers. The Burbs is a hilarious and thrilling ride as the residents of the street try to investigate and find proof of their neighbours being murderous killers. The end scenes are explosive with an unexpected surprise. The Burbs is another 90s classic. Another 90s great is Home Alone, a very much loved Christmas movie. Macaulay Culkin's character Kevin is a reminder of being a child and throwing a few tantrums. The film has iconic scenes such as the character Kevin realizing he is home alone, as his parents, siblings, and extended family have left him behind at home and boarded a plane at the airport to go abroad for Christmas. An iconic scene is when Kevin's mum realizes she forgot Kevin, who she sent to sleep in the attic overnight, and has left him at home. Evil arrives in the form of 2 burglars who Kevin sees monitoring the area and his house for burglary. Kevin then battles against the burglars to protect his house from being robbed. Home Alone is definitely a Christmas classic which I enjoy annually during the Christmas season. Another 90s great is Death Becomes Her, another film which represents the magic of the 1990s. Death Becomes Her is all about vanity and beauty and the competitiveness between 2 former friends played by Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn. Bruce Willis plays the role of husband and is caught between the rivalry of the 2 former friends. Death Becomes Her is a dark comedy about the lengths people would go to restore their beauty once discovering it has been lost. The trio put on a brilliant performance, making Death Becomes Her an all-time great. Death Becomes Her seals the decade of the 90s being the best era of movies in my opinion during my lifetime so far. A challenge in the world would be for movie directors to bring back the magic and atmosphere of 90s movies. When I was 7 years old, my favourite film was Needful Things. In my early life, there was the theme of horror films based on books by Stephen King in life. I remember watching the Tommyknockers and always remember the scene of a woman with lipstick which has green magic coming out of it. Another memorable scene is the doll flying scene. Needful Things, based on a book by Stephen King, is about a man who arrives in an American town and opens an antique store. He agrees to give an antique to a customer if they commit a prank in town. Chaos ensues and the town erupts in murder. The antique store owner is a demon who thrives off the chaos of neighbour turning against neighbour. When I watched the film at 7 years old, I thought the character of the antique store owner called Leland Gaunt was Satan. Now I am older and have read the book, it seems that Gaunt is another demonic type figure in league with Satan. Needful Things is an unforgettable movie and book. A 5-star film for the ages is Wes Craven's Scream, released in 1996. Scream is a horror film containing wit about previous horror films. The film focuses on the central character Sydney, whose mother had been killed allegedly by her lover in previous years. The film opens with a teenage girl being ruthlessly slaughtered. The rest of the film focuses on the character Sydney's circle of friends containing her boyfriend Billy, her friend Tatum, and Tatum's boyfriend Stu. A horror movie expert called Randy also hangs around with them sometimes. The teenagers' town and school is left in a state of fear as more killings occur. Scream was the first film I experienced which had a massive plot twist at the end. The film is well made and acted by the cast. In year 3, my friend told me all about the story of Billy and Sid as we walked around the playground in primary school. When the film premiered around October 2000 in England, I was thrilled to stay up and watch it at 10 p.m. in year 6 on a Sunday night, and I viewed the story of Billy and Sid myself. Scream is a very clever film, and when Scary Movie was released watching it in 2001, my English teacher said that Scream was a satire, when I thought of it as a horror, and Scary Movie took the comedy element a step further into a parody. Fortunately, I had seen most of the film Scary Movie parodied by 2001 and found it hilarious. Both films are excellent and can be described as all-time greats. The sequels Scream 2 and 3 are also enjoyable, and Scream 4 returned bringing the wit of Scream back to life again. The fifth sequel, Scream 2022 and Scream 6, are excellent sequels with new cast members, taking the fear element a notch higher with scarier kills in my opinion. I await Scream 7 excitedly, loving the newest sequels. On to more horror movies. The Blair Witch Project, which I watched around 2001, was the first film to be made in a documentary style. The film masterfully builds up the fear around 3 friends investigating the myth of the Blair Witch. The friends get lost in the woods, and fear is built up by the trio finding figurines hanging from the trees made of twigs. The ultimate scare is at the end of the film, which can be described as one of the most terrifying scenes in TV and film history. The Blair Witch Project is also parodied in Scary Movie and was followed by a disturbing sequel called Book of Shadows. I Know What You Did Last Summer is also a slasher great, also parodied in Scary Movie. Horror became my favourite movie genre after the 2000 and 2001 experience of watching the horror films I've mentioned. I Know What You Did Last Summer is about 4 teenage friends who think they've killed a man in a hit and run. After the deed is done, the 4 pledge to never tell a soul about it. A year later, where it seems that the 4 have stopped talking to one another, they all begin to receive ominous notes stating, "I know what you did last summer." The film is well directed and is full of suspense and fear built up. I look forward to the upcoming 2025 sequel film. In year 9 in 2003-2004 time, my English class was given a homework task of finding an urban legend, which is a scary story spread as a rumour or known to be a myth usually spread by word of mouth. My favourite one I came across was, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?" As a result, I thoroughly enjoyed the film and was excited to find the urban legend I had found for homework in the film. Urban legend is about a killer striking a college campus and killing students the same way as the killings occur in urban legends. The movie is a fun, thrilling watch that I've never forgotten. I watched the film after the homework task, I think, later in 2004. Another fun slasher movie I watched around 2004 is Valentine. The film is about 4 attractive female friends who snubbed a boy called Jeremy Melton at a school dance, as they didn't want to dance with him. Years later, it looks as if Jeremy Melton has returned to exact revenge by killing the group of friends off one by one. Similarly to Scream, the killer's face is hidden behind what becomes a terrifying mask. Valentine is another fun slasher movie favourite. Other teen horror greats are The Faculty, where aliens covertly take over a school, and Final Destination, where a group of teenage high school students have to outrun death's killing design for themselves. Final Destination is followed by several sequels. Returning to 2001, December saw the release of the first film in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, The Fellowship of the Ring. The second film, The Two Towers, was released a year later, and in December 2003, the final film, The Return of the King, was released. The trilogy is based on the book series The Lord of the Rings by J.R. Tolkien. For me, the Lord of the Rings films are the greatest movies on planet Earth. I was enraptured by the story and magic of the Fellowship of the Ring at the cinema when I watched it at 12 years old. The battle of good against evil is incredible and enticing. The atmosphere created by the Ringwraiths with the music to accompany their scenes is amazing. The song, which contains someone singing the word evil to the music, is amongst my favourite scenes ever in film history. If I had to pick a favourite of the 3, it would always be The Fellowship of the Ring. The 3-movie massive epic is legendary. The story is about an evil sorcerer called Sauron who has lost his ring. He seeks the ring with his army of demons as it contains the essence of his power in the ring. If he is reunited with the ring, Sauron will have dominion over all of which is called Middle-earth. Sauron and his legions are evil, so if he wins the battle and is reunited with the ring, he will plunge the good inhabitants of the world into eternal darkness by forcing them into slavery and imprisonment along with being whipped. Frodo is appointed the task to destroy the ring. The lands of Middle-earth contain many species such as wizards, hobbits, elves, orcs, and a creature called Gollum, who also hunts and desires the ring. Frodo is a hobbit who is entrusted with the task of destroying the ring in the fires of Mordor, where it was forged, as Gandalf thinks Frodo is incorruptible and won't be seduced by the power of the ring, which also turns the wearer invisible. Wearing the ring also shows Frodo the dimension of the Ringwraiths, who used to be kings in human form, who turned evil after Sauron granted them rings of power. The Lord of the Rings is a fantastic epic that everyone on the planet should watch. The cast is fantastic, and the directing and production is legendary. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is a global champion of movies, the greatest of all time. Spider-Man was also a fantastic film released in the summer of 2002. It was great fun to watch. The character of Peter Parker, played by Tobey Maguire, is bitten by a radioactive spider, and suddenly finds out that he later has superpowers. Parker becomes known as the superhero Spider-Man, who always wears a mask. He battles criminals on the streets of New York. A villain arrives called the Green Goblin, who proposes to Spider-Man that they become a team. Spider-Man refuses, and the Green Goblin sets out to destroy Spider-Man. The main characters in Peter Parker's life are his Aunt May, his friend Harry, and his love interest MJ. The story also becomes a battle about good defeating evil. Spider-Man is a definite must-watch for all. Another favourite film of mine is Troy. The story is based on the Greek myth about the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen, leaving her Spartan husband Menelaus to marry Paris, the Prince of Troy. Helen leaves Sparta with Paris to live behind the walls of Troy and becomes a princess of Troy. Menelaus' brother Agamemnon uses the occurrence as an excuse to gather the kings of Greece and their armies to go to war with Troy. This is his attempt to become all-powerful. The war is said to have lasted 10 years. The focus of the film Troy, released in 2004, focuses on the character of the Greek legend Achilles, played by Brad Pitt. A central part of the film is the love story that blossoms between Achilles and an abducted Trojan priestess, the niece of King Priam of Troy called Briseis. Another key character is Hector, who is another legend of the battlefield. The film takes the viewer on an enthralling, captivating journey, mesmerizing the viewer with its exotic music and its telling of the rise and fall of legendary Greek heroes. Troy is definitely one of the best films ever made. Another legendary all-time great is the film Gone with the Wind. The film Gone with the Wind was released in 1939. The film is an epic story about the love story between the character of Scarlett O'Hara, played by Vivien Leigh, and Rhett Butler, played by Clark Gable. The two characters become legendary with incredible performances by Gable and Vivien. I came across the film in my third year of university during doing a history degree. I selected the module American History and Hollywood Film, and Gone with the Wind was one of the films we watched. I fell under the spell of the 4-hour film as I began to adore the characters of Rhett Butler and Scarlett O'Hara. The appearances of Vivien Leigh and Clark Gable were fabulous, turning the film into a major favourite. The film is set in Southern America in the 1800s. The central character of Scarlett is depicted at the beginning of the film as enjoying the splendour and glamour of life in the South, as her parents own a plantation. Scarlett thinks she is in love with the character Ashley, whilst the character Rhett takes a shine to Scarlett. The Civil War hits, destroying the glamour of the Southern way of life and ending the time of Scarlett's as a Southern belle. The rest of the 4-hour film is about Scarlett navigating her love life via different marriages and depicts the growing love and affection that builds between Scarlett and Rhett. The film is a romantic classic and a definite all-time great. During my childhood in the 1990s, I remember watching almost weekly with my family American made-for-TV movies. The films usually focused on murder. My favourite made-for-TV movie is She Fought Alone. Brian Austin Green plays the role of Ethan, who becomes the heartthrob of the film, especially for when I was a 10-year-old girl. The beginning of the film focuses on high school popularity and the crew started by Ethan. A new female member of the crew, played by Tiffany Amber Thiessen, accuses Ethan's best friend Jace of committing a felony against her. Ethan and the crew run to Jace's defense and begin hazing the character played by Thiessen called Caitlin. She becomes distraught going to school. The film is a must-watch that can be watched again and again. Jumping to a Saturday in 2010, I had the most exciting evening watching the made-for-TV movie, The Alexandra O'Hara Story. By then, a return to watching a made-for-TV film I hadn't seen before made for an incredible Saturday night. The film is about a handsome serial killer played by John Stamos, who is a serial killer terrorizing the area. The film is viewed through the eyes of his wife Alexandra, who begins to suspect Stamos' character called Nick of being the killer as the body count builds up. The full title of the film is Fatal Vows, The Alexandra O'Hara Story. It is based on true events. The film is a well-acted, gripping, unforgettable watch. Similarly, another great 2010 Saturday night was watching The Not Seen Before Stranger Beside Me, made in 1995. The villain of the film is the character Chris Gallagher, played by Eric Close. An evil antagonist begins striking the town with another evil felony, and the wife of Chris, also played by Tiffany Amber Thiessen, begins to suspect her husband. The film is another great watch, and I would love for there to be more films made in the style of what is now the great made-for-TV films of the 90s. I wouldn't be able to do a podcast on my all-time favourite movies without mentioning American teen movies. Some of my teen favourites are She's All That, Wish Upon a Star, Sabrina the Teenage Witch Movie, John Tucker Must Die, and Cruel Intentions. The films are then parodied in the film Not Another Teen Movie. Growing up, the high school setting of an American high school was always addictive. Other favourites are Bring It On 1, 3 and 5 and Never Been Kissed. I faced some disappointment starting secondary school in England at 11 and finding that the lockers weren't in a corridor to emulate the scene seen in American teen movies. The scene of the lockers lined in a corridor in American teen films is iconic. I had to get over not sharing in the lockers in the corridor experience in England. American teen films are always entertaining and can be watched repeatedly. Another great movie is Queen of the Damned, based on a book by Anne Rice. The film was released in 2002. The gothic atmosphere and alluring music makes The Queen of the Damned into a 5-star movie. The performance of Stuart Townsend as the vampire Lestat is stunning and world-class. The film is about a vampire who awakens in the 21st century and decides to become a musical star and icon. He angers the other vampires on the planet by mentioning vampires in his lyrics. A member of the Talamasca, an organization who investigates the paranormal called Marguerite, becomes obsessed with Lestat after reading his ancient diary. The film is phenomenal, and Lestat's music also awakens the evil queen of vampires called Akasha, played by the deceased Aaliyah. Another 90s favourite of mine is How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. The film is a 5-star watch, and the hilarious battle of the sexes between Kate Hudson's character Andy Anderson and Matthew McConaughey's character Benjamin Barry. Benjamin Barry pledges he can make any woman fall in love with him in 10 days, whilst Andy says she can drive any man away in 10 days with repeating some women's crazy, perhaps bunny boiler ways. The two schemes clash together and hilarity ensues. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is a definite classic that can be watched again and again. More recent favourites in the 2020s have been 365 Days, a Netflix trilogy so far, Smile, The Substance, Heretic, Insidious the Red Door, Black Phone, Megan, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the Scream sequels, Blink Twice, and Trap. I became addicted to 365 Days and watched it practically weekly 10 times in a row. I've never done this with a film before. The film is about a mafia boss called Massimo who wants the chance to have 365 days for a woman called Laura to fall in love with him. It's a great movie, and the sequels are also enjoyable. The Spider-Verse animated films are excellent, and there has been a great lineup of horror films as listed above. When I was in year 2 or 2nd grade, my friend started a game. He instructed us girls in the class to go into the girls' toilet and say Candyman 3 times in the mirror with the light off. Then he said to try saying Bloody Mary too. Years later, in 2018, I actually came across the original Candyman film made in 1992. I came across the film on Netflix. The film was complete with the classic 90s horror atmosphere. It is a great watch. The film is about the myth of the Candyman. The Candyman was based on the tale that an African-American man was murdered by the townsfolk for an interracial love affair. The legend goes that if you say Candyman 3 times in a mirror, he will appear and slaughter you. Fortunately, back in year 2, no one appeared in the girls' toilet in the background in the mirror with a hook for a hand. Years later, I loved the experience of the 90s magic of watching Candyman and Candyman 2. The sequel, Farewell to the Flesh. Both films are a great watch. So that concludes episode 12 of my podcast, Book and Story World with author Priya Gurwal. And here's to the future of a lifetime of more great movies to watch. So that's a rundown of all my favourite films up to 35 years old. Take care, everyone. Have a lovely week. Bye-bye.